You're watching Hindustan Times, and I am Aditi Prasad. It's been a long night for voters in the United States of America, as well as politicians, of course, as Donald Trump and Joe Biden seem to be splitting the traditional strongholds. And the landslide for Democrats that was being predicted by many of the pollsters ahead of the election seems to have not really worked out on the ground. And battleground states, in fact, again, hold the key to the White House, just like did in 2016. I'm joined by Yashwant Raj, the Hindustan Times political correspondent, in Washington. Yashwant, long night for you and the rest of America. The landslide, which the Democrats had been predicted, is clearly not nowhere on the horizon for Biden. What do you think happened?
The landslide was not a prediction. I think it was a hope. And the polls that Biden had led consistently in polls, and by a fair amount, I mean about 7%, 8 percentage points. But in battleground states, the race was always tighter. The gap was about 2 to 3 percentage points in battleground states, and so a landslide might have been the desire of some Democrats, but it was certainly it didn't happen, of course, as we know now, and Biden also did not close the contest as early as he was supposed to.
Yeah.
And there is no surprise here. I mean, Trump has done that before. I mean, 2016, remember?
Exactly.
Yes, so not exactly surprised.
Yeah, but when can we expect a final outcome? Because this seems to be going back and forth, and yet again, the battleground states seem to be holding the key. When do we expect a final outcome? Do you see it prolonged over the next couple of days, or do you see an outcome within the next several hours?
Next several hours is difficult to say. The three states, the blue wall states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, they're not likely to decide in the next few hours. And their counting is likely to continue until late Wednesday. At least Michigan has said already that they've said not to expect an announcement anytime soon. I mean, they've said actually late Wednesday. Wisconsin is going to go down that route too. And so is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is actually very slow. So I don't think any of these states will be ready to announce before Wednesday, late Wednesday, and until they do, the race is still on.
Right. Let's talk about Pennsylvania. You mentioned Pennsylvania, and let's also talk about Florida, because Trump was trailing in Michigan and Ohio early morning India time. But now there's a clear lead for Trump in both these battleground states. Now, none of the states have been called yet, except New York Times seems to have just now, before we went live, seems to have called Florida for Trump. But he's leading in Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina as of now. How crucial are these states, and how do you see things panning out?
The math for Trump was to work in a way that if he had kept the 2016 map, he'd won all the states that he'd won in 2016, and then gone on to also, the minus the three states. And then the battle would have been for those three states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. But he has held on to Florida, which has just been called by AP and New York Times. North Carolina is probably will be called for Trump also, but I think there are some counties which are counting their early votes, so that's what kind of has held back the North Carolina results. Iowa has been called for Trump. Ohio has been called for Trump. So, and these are states that he had won in 2016 also. So, I think the states to watch will be these three: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. Is Trump had won Arizona in 2016. Biden is leading there and by a wide margin. He's expected to take that too. So. It's going to be interesting, but there's three states: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania hold the key. Still.
Yashwant, I have another Yashwant joining us now, Yashwant Deshmukh. We have Yashwant Raj from Washington with us, Yashwant, and then we have Yashwant Deshmukh, who's joining us all the way from Dubai, and a very known pollster, a very popular pollster. Yashwant, you've done a lot of work in the United States. Your organization, See Voter, Yashwant. Which way do you see this heading? Pennsylvania. I mean, Trump has got Florida and seems to have got Florida in his pocket now, and he seems to be leading in the key battleground states: Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. The landslide for Democrats are clearly not happening, which was anticipated.
Well, a lot of Aditi states where you mentioned, we have to be very, very careful because these numbers are not going to remain the same for a simple reason that we know that the postal ballots, the absentee ballots, and then the in-person ballots, and each state and many of the counties have their own way of which they are going to count first and which they are going to count later. So, for example, in Pennsylvania, the lead of Donald Trump is substantial right now, but that is largely because they have counted the votes which have gone today first, and now that the postal ballots will be counted, that lead will start shrinking in. And just to remind, the postal ballots, just yesterday Supreme Court had given them the option of taking in the postal ballots which will reach them till November 6th. So it is not just today's the postal ballots which are being counted today. So, and just the opposite of that, probably you are going to see in Arizona, where 76% votes have been counted, and we can see the very healthy lead of Biden over Trump, almost like 8-point lead. But it is not going to be that big a lead because it's just the opposite. They have counted the postal ballot, in-person absentee, and like that, and now they are counting the votes which have been which have cast today. So each state and each county, they have their own way. So wherever you are finding a huge Trump lead, you can be assured that those states or counties are actually counting today's vote first. And wherever you are watching at a huge Biden lead. Having said that, no surprises so far. I mean, as far as the blue states and the red states are concerned, barring a state of Arizona, but that was taken as a swing states. So all the deep blue have turned deep blue, all the reds are deep red. Now coming down to the swing states, we know Ohio has been called. That is should be an alarm bell for a simple reason for Biden camp, because till yesterday Ohio was in aggregations taken as +2% lead for Biden. Now called as a cold, as a too close to call, and taken in a race which might turn blue. It is not happening. The lead of Ohio is substantial, and that tells something about about the overall estimations, the way the demography of Ohio is probably changed, or because of the economic policies, whichever way you want to analyze. 4 years back also, Ohio was called in that, okay, this is because now it is more of a, funnily and oddly enough, the blue-collared workers of Ohio, they were analyzed that they might be turning more Republican now. It's a weird kind of a place to be. And there are counties, and the urban and the rural areas of Ohio, there are different ways they are being counted, but it has been called. So there is something fundamentally somewhere that has gone wrong in that way. The aggregators and the analysts have been taking in Ohio. Same is happening in Florida. Florida was too close to call, but the leads which I am watching right now, Aditi, I mean, it has been okay. By the time we take, Florida has been called. That's a big one. And for the last 2 hours, I was wondering why exactly it is not being called, because 96% of the votes counted and 3% lead of Donald Trump. Even if the remaining votes went 70-30 in favor of Biden, there was no way that Biden was supposed to win Florida. So Florida has been just called. That's a big one for Trump. And I'm still unable to understand why they are still holding on Texas so long. And there was a narrative, Aditi, Texas was taken in as a swing state. That narrative that Texas has become purple. And that has driven the narrative for the last 3 months of overall how big a decisive sweep this is going to be for Biden. Because even It's in Indian parameters is if Modi Gujarat में हार रहा है. अगर मोदी गुजरात में हार रहा है तो I mean, Texas is something like that kind of a red state, which is unlikely to go blue. Very, very rare that has happened. So I am still finding it very amusing that they are not calling Texas yet, probably because of the fact that there is a lot more postal ballots that needs to be counted. In Texas, we know 91% have been counted, only 9% remaining. And with 9% remaining, the lead of Trump is 6 points. So how likely is that Biden wins 100% of the remaining 9%? You know, so those things are to be taken into account. But don't expect the Rust Belt states to come in for the results tonight, simply because many of the states are going to take in the postal ballot till 6, till 9. One of the state is going to count the postal ballot, which will come in till November 17th. So, you know, I mean, this is too early to call, right?
So this is too early and possibly too close to call, given the fact that it's the battleground states that hold the key. But let me talk about Pennsylvania with you. Yashwant, clearly Trump taking the lead there. To what extent could the rioting in Philadelphia could have possibly helped Trump here?
The rioting,
it will go down the wire.
Both of you are called Yashwant. I want to, both of you are called Yashwant. There's the confusion. But let me put this to Yashwant Raj, and then Yashwant Deshmukh, you can weigh in. Yashwant, please carry on.
So which rioting? The one in Philadelphia that happened a couple of days ago or earlier?
Yes, and a couple of days ago and even earlier.
That's Trump's wish. Trump has been playing on this law and order card to scare suburban voters with the specter of violence and looting coming to suburban neighborhoods and stuff. That's been Trump's ploy as an election strategy. So I'm not sure if that will play as much a factor as everything else, as Yashwant was talking about, this early voting. So Pennsylvania and these three states, we need to wait a while before we start looking into the numbers, because they have, as Yashwant rightly said, I mean, every state is counting their early votes and polling day votes differently. And in most cases, I mean, for instance, North Carolina, I mean, if you noticed, Biden had a huge lead in the beginning, right? And it was only because they had started by counting. They'd been counting the early votes for a long time now. And so the surge was Biden's votes, early votes, and then Trump's polling day votes caught up and overtook Biden, and now you know where it stands. So things will change. But just one thought about the Texas situation. Now, Texas is a red state, but it's been turning because of major demographic changes. Lots of people moving in. Their technology industry is bringing a lot of people from outside, and lots of Hispanic people moving in, a lot of Asians and Indian American, South Asians there too. So the demographic has changed. And the first sign of trouble for Republicans in Texas was when, if you remember, Beto O'Rourke, who ran for Senate against Ted Cruz, he came surprisingly close to unseating Ted Cruz in a Senate election. So that was the first sign of trouble for Republicans, and they've been troubled since. And this time, some Democrats actually thought they could flip it, but it was a wish more, because I mean they still need to work in that state. I mean it's ready to be flipped, but not immediately. And if you remember, Biden didn't go there himself, despite calls from Democrats, very senior Democrats from Texas, for him to visit the place, and they had asked for even to send Barack Obama there. But neither went there. They did send Kamala Harris to Houston. Houston has again got a lot of South Asian population. So she went to that Harris County, which is also, if you notice, they've voted in massive numbers this time. So Texas is waiting to be flipped, but it wasn't ready for flipping this time, apparently. So that's Texas. And that's one I think I just wanted to add about Texas to what Yashwant was saying.
Right. Can I get your point, adding to what Yashwant was saying, but let me just get back to, the question about Pennsylvania, Yashwant, with Trump leading there. To what extent, I'll ask you the same question, in the rioting in Philadelphia and the law and order situation there in the state, could that have, because Pennsylvania was where, on the last day of campaigning, both Trump and Biden laid out the red carpet there, but it seems to be, for now, I'm caveating that, for now going the Trump way. What do you think worked in his favor?
Yes.
I guess that it is still is going to go down the wire. Aditi, Pennsylvania also. It's about 2/3 votes have been counted, but the remaining 1/3 is where Biden is expecting to sweep in. I understand that the lead is almost like 57-42. That's it's an obscene lead. It looks obscene right now, but it is going to go down the wire for sure. I can guarantee you that it's not going to be this huge. And Pennsylvania is critical. It's very, very critical for Biden to, if he really wants to flip this one, win this one. And for Trump, somehow I'm still uncomfortable with the way, for example, Florida was being taken into account. Florida till yesterday was taken in for Biden by majority of the aggregators. And look at the lead. From -3 to +3 kind of a scenario in Florida, that tells something went missing about, to the extent of Latino voters that probably everybody thought they are going to vote for Democrats lock, stock, and barrel. That didn't happen. There is something about there. Latinos have not gone to Democrats the way Democrats might have hoped them to. That's an important thing. And Ohio and Florida, they will come up with their own way how they are going to analyze the working class whites and the Latino voters have behaved in this particular election.
Aditi, may I?
Can I? Please. Yes,
yeah.
please.
So about Florida, there were signs of trouble. The thing to know about the Latinos is they don't vote as a bloc. The Latinos of Florida are there are various elements to it. There are Cuban Latinos, and there are Venezuelan Latinos, and then there are the Cuban and Venezuelan Latinos. They escaped socialist countries like Cuba and Venezuela, and and if you notice, Trump would talk about the socialism. They would try and call Kamala Harris socialist, and the entire Democratic agenda socialist. That was a pitch to these voters, Latino voters. Now, Cuban Latinos, they have always been Republican. They vote Republican from the time of Bay of Pigs, the disaster that happened, and since then they've been voting Republican. They soured on Democrats, and they've been voting Republicans. And Venezuelan immigrants also, for the same reason, that they escaped a socialist regime in Venezuela. So anybody who talks to them about the specter of socialism is likely to get this vote. Likewise, in Arizona Latinos are different. They come from Mexico and other areas around that Honduras and stuff. So they vote completely differently. They are very democratic. They tend democratic. Cubans they've been Republican. They voted Republican. So this time there was trouble. There was trouble about people talking about Biden's support among Latinos being soft, and some Democratic congressmen, they had talked about this for a very long. They've been talking about this for a very long time, and apparently, what happened in Florida is what was feared. Biden's Latino thing didn't work. If you remember, he also sent Barack Obama there a couple of times to mobilize young Black, young African Americans, to mobilize them. That also was a sign of weakness, that Biden was not exciting them enough. So there were signs of trouble in Florida from before, and Miami-Dade County, which Clinton had won with huge numbers last time, Biden has underperformed there, and that's the county which has brought him down in Florida. And so
okay,
Florida was
that's
trouble. Trouble thing that was kind of brewing for Biden.
That's an interesting insight, But I just want to talk about Donald Trump himself. He's just tweeted a few minutes ago that I will be making a statement tonight, a big win. He's already declared himself a winner as far as the nobody's ready to call the elections yet, but. Trump has already called it. He's already dubbed it as a big win for himself. And then the very next tweet, he goes, which is immediately after 2-3 minutes later, he goes and tweets, we're up big, but they're trying to steal the election. We will never let them do it. Votes cannot be cast after the polls are closed. But Yashwant.
That's his strategy for Pennsylvania, which is what he's been trying to do all this time. He's been talking about the Pennsylvania early votes, the mail-in votes, and he's been trying to delegitimize them because he knows that's where he's in trouble. Once they start counting, and Biden will be dominating the early voting there. And I toured Pennsylvania extensively this time, and I know this because I've met a lot of supporters, people who voted for Biden early through either in person or through mail. So Biden will work up his numbers once the early voting early voting ballots are counted. And Trump he's been worried about those votes for a very long time. And
he's been worried. Yashwant Deshmukh, can I bring you in here to talk about Trump's just tweet which has just come in? I will be making a big statement tonight, of course, closely followed by they are trying to steal the election. So one doesn't know whether he's won or he's still sort of, where's he at mentally?
I guess he knew precisely what he was doing. I'm talking about Trump. I guess that they knew very well, Republicans knew that the postal ballot thing is not going to serve them well, and that they have to take this down the legal line. And unless, as I said to you earlier, Aditi, that unless there is a miracle that Biden sweeps even in the crushing the red votes, and that might have taken him, somewhat the Republicans to say that, okay, we are not winning this one. But you look at the numbers, as we are talking, Wisconsin 51-46 in favor of Trump, Michigan 53-44 in favor of Trump, Pennsylvania 57-42 in favor of Trump. So all these are in-person vote today. Those who are first cast. Obviously, the postal ballots will change everything. These scenarios, these will go down the wire or take a blue hit after those votes are counted. But the thing is that with these kind of numbers, he will go around the town, say, I have won decisively, and end of debate, just stop it. This is where it stops. And then they will file the legal petitions. And in the federal court there, you can see by this evening, probably hundreds of petitions, because there are multiple elections. He doesn't even have to challenge it himself. There are hundreds of races in the same ballot. Anybody can challenge anything, and all of them are going to have the same thing. But having said that,
this is not a surprise. Sorry to interrupt. Did I interrupt? Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
There were indications that Trump would do this from some time now. There was a report in Axios 2-3 days ago that this is what Trump will do. Sometime during the evening, if he is ahead, which he is now, he's ahead. He will declare victory and try and put the rest of the counting in doubt. And the lawyers will go to court, challenge, counting of voting, or they'll complain of some ballots missing or something of the sort. But this is exactly what they plan to do around this time of the night. And I'm surprised why he's doing this, because he is ahead. Unless he fears big losses in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, I'm wondering why he's doing this now, because it made sense if he was ahead, but things looked a little dodgy. But at the moment, he's got Florida, he's got North Carolina, right? He's lost Arizona, which is cause for worry, but and he's leading so far in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So unless he thinks those leads will collapse, and he sees, he knows something that
And
we
he's
don't.
preparing the ground. You mean he's preparing the ground for the leads collapsing? Is that what you're getting at?
This is what he was supposed to do. But the fact that he's doing it, that means those leads are a little too flaky. I mean, they will not hold. And at least he doesn't expect them to hold.
Yeah, he's rather done well in North Carolina. I mean, as Yashwant just said, that earlier in the day, all the leads were going for the Biden, but then because the postal ballots were counted early. That's obviously we know for sure. Right. But now Trump is leading by almost 2 points, and 95 is over. So remaining 5% are the votes which are actually they have been voted today. They are in person today.
There is some county which voted early and they have not counted that county, which is what I'm hearing. So that's what is causing the delay in North Carolina.
Probably they haven't called North Carolina yet. I mean, in any case, it is too close to call in that way. So unless 100% are in, I guess it would not be prudent to call in that. However, Texas, I guess that probably they are. Is that right, Yashwant? They are voting. They are waiting for the numbers from the major urban centers where they are still hoping that probably that might do the trick for Biden. Is that right?
I really haven't heard anything very much about Texas, because there was a time when Biden was leading, and then once he fell back, people just lost interest, because Texas was never supposed to flip. It was a wish of the Democrats, and so once Trump went into lead, people just went off Texas because they said, okay, now this is going to go the usual way. Don't worry about Texas.
Yeah. But I'm surprised for one thing. I mean, because being a pollster and because we are polling in US, I mean, we are doing this time back and forth. That's another thing. But I was always surprised, why exactly is Texas counted in the list of swing states? I mean, this was something which, not by a mile. I mean, I would be really surprised if Texas goes. There is no point that you can have a Republican president for to be sure. But there was a sustained narrative. There was a narrative that okay, Texas is turned purple. I mean, it's now a battleground. It is a battleground state, and so was Arizona. Arizona is arguably understandable, but still, I don't feel that the lead of Biden's probable victory in Arizona is going to be that big. I somehow am still doubting that. I feel that by the time we'll get all the today's vote counted in, this is also going to shrink it further. That's what I feel.
Right. Do you believe, Yashwant, and I asked this to Yashwant, Raj and Deshmukh both, do you believe that these elections are eventually going to land up in court, in the Supreme Court? And then, of course, if they do land up in the Supreme Court, that's why the Senate's approval of Amy Coney Barrett as the judge on October 26th, I think it was, is very significant. It tilts the balance in the court heavily towards the conservatives.
Yes, but what we need to see is whether there'll be questions if she will recuse herself if an election matter came before her. Would she deal with it? Because she was asked about election issues at her confirmation. So there is this thing about whether she'll recuse herself. And and also the Supreme Court has a couple of election issues coming before it, and they have not voted they have not gone with Republicans. Case in point is the Pennsylvania thing, right? Trump has been complaining very loudly about the Supreme Court decision on Pennsylvania and stuff. So,
but do you think? Can I get you? And I want to ask Yashwant Deshmukh this. Do you think? Sorry, that the matter is going to land up in the Supreme Court at the end of it?
As I mentioned,
given the controversy over the mail-in ballot,
miraculously, this would have been a blue sweep. Unless it would have been like Texas going to them, and Florida going to them, and Ohio going to them, and everything is looking like. Unless that would have happened, I don't think that Trump would have conceded. That election today. They knew precisely the line. That is why they wanted that additional judge in Supreme Court. I fear, and unless now miraculously, other side also, unless miraculously Trump leads in all these iron belt states, they remain, rust belt states, they remain there. I mean, unless that happens, I don't think Biden is going to call in as well. So this is in all probability going to end up in courts, probably, in all probability. I'm just fearing, hoping both ways. I mean, the way you can pick your words, but this is all the writings of going to the court.
Right, and especially with Trump already picking up his phone and starting to tweet, it's begun. And let's see how it goes, because, as you said, both of you said that we may not be able to call this election just yet. It's going to take several more hours, if not maybe a couple of more days. By when do you think, Yashwant Deshmukh, we're going to get a clear answer?
Well, from the analyst perspective, I guess we should get a clear answer at least a day from now. It will take minimum a day for us to figure out which way, how much the gaps are closing in due to the postal ballots, and if they are. But if not, if it is going down the wire, for example, in Pennsylvania, if they are going to go down the wire and count till 6th night, and then it is decided, suppose, in favor of one person or the other by few hundred or few thousand votes, almost immediately the other person is likely to challenge it. I mean, and most likely the Trump is going to challenge it if he is not going to win it. He is going to challenge it, that why exactly 3 additional days were given, and why should these votes be counted in the main ballot, and so on and so forth.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us right now. I've taken more time than required. And Yashwant Raj, it's almost 1 a.m. in where you are, and I'm sorry for keeping you up, but I'm sure you'll be up for several more hours, given that it's all going down to the wire. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll keep coming back to you at Hindustan Times with more updates during the day. Hopefully, some of our panelists here will be able to join us again. Keep watching HindustanTimes.com and do tune in to our future broadcasts. Thank you.